Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Good to see you today, Daniel.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
We would like to talk a little bit today about an article that appeared and a story on ABC. And it has to do with the expansion on the war on terror. I guess that's what they're after. But the title is a little bit threatening. It's a debate now within the government officials and former military people, but it's ongoing. And to me, it's a follow-up on the assassination of al-Awlaki. You know, that happened, and we know that story pretty well. But now they're talking this up, the necessity for this. It says, debate among U.S. officials over whether to kill over Twitter accounts. And this is scary stuff. And you know, if people are told, well, yeah, they might be conspiring to kill people and doing things, and say, and that we will have a program that we kill them before they kill anybody else. But it's not quite so simple. Matter of fact, on al-Awlaki, al-Awlaki was never convicted or even charged with a violent crime. And his son and a nephew, I believe, were assassinated as well, and they were teenagers. So this is dangerous business, and I just wonder, you know, what could this lead to? This I think could be very, very bad for the whole principle that they're approaching where the speech is the crime. Yeah. Don't approve of the speech, so you're on the assassination list.
And it's a delicate issue, and this came to us by way of antiwar.com, by the way. It was an ABC News story. And the ABC News talked about the debate over killing Twitter tough guys. You know, there are a lot of people that have armchair warriors that have taken to Twitter to support ISIS or Al-Qaeda or what have you. And the issue is, at what point do they get targeted? And especially when you talk about Americans, the article goes over this young fellow, Junaid Hussain, who the U.S. claimed was a senior propagandist for ISIS, but also pointing out he was only 9 years old when the U.S. invaded Iraq.
Oh, boy.
You know, so he, and he's also a British citizen, which makes it interesting as well. But the U.S. has bragged recently about going in and taking him out in a drone strike, this young fellow.
You know, there's been arguments that the nature of war will change and is changing, and we're in the midst of it. At the moment, we don't foresee, you know, massive amounts of troops with tanks marching across Europe. We don't think World War I in the same manner is going to break out World War II, and even Vietnam and Korea, hopefully not that. But there's still a lot of war and a lot of killing, and now the battlefield keeps expanding. Nobody knows where the battlefield is. Nobody knows who the enemy is. Nobody knows when the war is over. So to me, it looks like this is part of this process. So if you're on Twitter, you become the enemy because you might say something, which I think is really embarking on a very dangerous policy.
And this is also kind of an age-old thing. You know, there were people jailed during World War I. We think of Eugene Debs, jailed because he didn't support the war effort and tried to encourage people to avoid the draft. And you have that, you've had it through the Cold War as well, and this is a continuation. I think it might be more dangerous in a way, partly because of technology. People have access to Twitter, it's used much more frequently, and so as you say, the battlefield expands to every corner of our lives, even our private lives.
And I think they're trying to make war more sterile. You know, first you steal the money and close down their banks, and then you put on sanctions, and then you come along and you use drones. You don't send a total army in, although we do that too, and bombs. But we send in the drones, and no boots on the ground. You know, this sort of thing. So the neocons have a field day over this because they say, you're right. Because we need those troops on the ground. We need thousands of troops to invade these countries. We need to have killed Assad a long time ago. And we need to have stayed with many, many more. 1 million Iraqi dead wasn't enough. So this whole thing sort of falls into supporting the warmongers rather than them wake up and say, hey, you know, we don't need to be doing this. I see it sometimes as not a war on terror. Most of this is a war on our liberties, you know, and this is an introduction, but it's always for good. You know, we're only going to watch the Twitter accounts of those people who are about to blow up something. And I just don't believe that for a minute, because I think they, you know, when they do get information, they either misplace it or they don't understand it. They certainly don't have any understanding of what's happening in the Middle East.
Well, certainly it seems to be when in doubt, overkill. You know, the use of signature strikes, as we've talked about on this program before, where it's not targeting an individual, but targeting behavior and a set of attributes, young male of fighting age, etc. So when in doubt, overstrike. And we notice in the article there's an appropriately named General Barbero, who I think encapsulated this. He said, if we have insufficient intel on the network, you attack what you can.
Yeah, boy. And also, what's going on here is maybe out of desperation that they've been fighting ISIS, and everything they do, ISIS gets bigger. Matter of fact, in many ways, we've created this monster. You know, I mean, we can go through that history. Iraq didn't have it, and the Mujahideen turned it into the Taliban, and all this. So then we just send more and more, but not enough, and therefore things get worse. And so now they have to change their tactics. ISIS is not fading away. ISIS is doing pretty well with our methods right now, you know, in training troops and all the silliness and all the successes. And now I don't even think the American people should trust our own government as what they're doing, because everything they seem to be doing in the history we get, you know, the recent history and revelation of the security report showing that they had information that if we did what we did in Syria, it would create this monster and this problem here, and they just totally ignored
Did it anyway.
You know?
You know, it's really, as you say, it's desperation, but it's also, you know, ignoring some advice of some great strategists. Like, think about Sun Tzu, who advised you to know yourself and know your enemy. And here's a former Pentagon advisor who talks about, so the English-speaking ISIS guy that it's removed by a drone strike could equal 1,000 potential fighters. So take out this guy before, but what they don't realize that's absolutely empirically true is that drone strikes breed radicalization. You kill one with a drone, and two will come to take the place.
What about the one that said something, shoot off your mouth all you want, eventually we'll kill you?
Yes, exactly. An unnamed counterterrorism official. Shoot off your mouth all you want. Eventually we're going to come and kill you.
Free speech. Shout off all you want, but we're going to control your Twitter account.
But this is a mentality, isn't it? It's almost a mental illness.
You know, when we talk about our foreign policy, it's obvious that we hear from both sides, and there's some criticism because the attitude from some is, well, these are bad guys and you have to do it. But I wonder if, and a lot of these will be young people too, and they'll say, well, when it gets so bad, you have to kill these people. But what happens when they realize what this invasion and monitoring of Twitter means, when you might use words inadvertently and have no plan, no verification that you did anything or planning to do anything, but you have said the wrong words? I mean, you could have somebody on your doorstep, and we've heard stories like that already. The FBI shows up and we want to know who you are and what you're doing.
The whole thing reminds us of the Vietnam body count. You know, we got how many people we took out. We take out 10 senior leaders, never realizing that the ideology is where we lost in the battlefield. And your famous quote from the general.
Yeah, when you think about the goal, especially even before 9/11, but 9/11 spurred it on, and that was the remaking of the Middle East. And they've remade the Middle East, and of course, to our detriment, to the detriment of the world, we end up with migration problems, we end up with financial problems, but still, the one thing that I get concerned about the most is the attack on our freedom of expression. And this says that you got to be careful. If you say the right things, you have freedom of expression. And I used to sort of joke about the First Amendment. It wasn't written so we could talk about the weather. You know, it was written to talk about controversial things, and this doesn't even give you a chance. This whole idea that an Iraqi or another citizen, British or American now, they don't get charged, and there's no prosecution. They're not guilty of anything. They just know that they're probably bad people. And that to me is so dangerous because I find so many answers in the cause of liberty, you know, whether it's in the marketplace or financial markets and monetary system, or even defining marriage and things like this. You don't need the government to do these things. It's when you have all this mischief involved in dealing with the minutia. But this is one minutia that I hope everybody wakes up and says that, well, okay, maybe We shouldn't do it if they haven't been charged and we don't know exactly what they did, and we don't even say what they did. Maybe at least back off a little bit. I mean, they're not about to invade this country. The invasion of this country is the invasion of our own government on our own liberties. That's where the real threat is. It's not coming from outsiders. So the people who wanted to do us harm, I think we've satisfied them quite well doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Obviously, I feel very concerned about this whole idea that people in the administration, or at least have been in the administration, are talking about looking at Twitter accounts and assassinating people for what they've said. And if that isn't an attack on freedom of speech, I don't know what is. But people have to realize that in this country, supposedly, before anybody's guilty of anything, they have to be charged and they have to give a fair hearing. Under certain circumstances, you might modify it, but not to the modification of saying anybody using a Twitter account is a potential enemy of the state, and therefore the government has the right to go and assassinate them. I mean, it's been done on several occasions. It's probably been done many times that we don't know about, but here it's coming out blatantly because the policies that we have in the Middle East are a total failure, and they know about it, and they just think, well, we're going to attack ISIS, by watching what they're doing on the Twitter accounts. Well, they'd do a lot better by quit financing the various groups and financing them to the point of them ending up getting our weapons, training people who turn on us and kill our supporters. So I would say it's time to change the policy. It's the policy that is sick and needs fixed. It's not the American people's liberties that are the problem. The real problem is the authoritarian approach of an interventionist government, both in an economic sense and in a sense of maintaining an empire and imposing our will in these many, many countries around the world. And the sooner we do that, the better. Then I don't believe that we would have to monitor everybody's Twitter account and find out what they might be saying. I would say that liberty is the goal that we should have, and the sooner we understand that and work to that goal, the better off we'll be. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.